Hi, thanks Mimi for coming to visit the Miller Dahlia Gardens this morning. And as you can see from the panorama that you just took, I have a lot of dahlias. I have over 1,200 dahlias and more than 300 varieties. And you're looking right now at the water lily dahlia, which is one of the 20-some forms of dahlias. It has a very flat flower like a water lily flower and comes in a wide array of colors. But they all have that same form in common of the flattened flower. You can see they all bear their own names. This is My Forever, a relatively new variety of water lily dahlias. And if Mimi will pan down the bed with the water lily dahlias in, you'll see they come in a wide array of colors. The shapes are all pretty much the same, however. Some are very delicate, some of them are a little more dense, but all the colors are very intense. That particular dahlia is Black Widow. As I said, they all have names. And like 007, they all have numbers too. In the American Dahlia Society handbook, they each would have their own number. That's Taratahai Ruby. Behind it is Wildwood Marie, the pink one. The orange one you're coming into focus now is Teddy. And some of the names are quite fun, and they're usually named after the originator's children or a relative or friend. And you can see the colors just go on and on and on. What you're looking at now are giants and large dahlias in various forms, but mostly decoratives. And the big purple dahlia under that red and white umbrella is called My Hero. It's a relatively new variety of dahlias from Swan Island out in the Pacific Northwest, one of the biggest dahlia growers in the nation. But if you look closely, you can see various dahlias in various stages of development. And as Mimi walks down the aisle here, we'll start seeing that there are other colors of dahlias and shapes. And you see orange and pink and lavender. And you'll see ones that curve back on their stem and some that are more cactusy as we walk along. As you can see, this is called a recurved form of dahlia. It's Vasiomegos is the name. It's one of a variety of Megos type dahlias. You see how the petals recurve all the way back to the stem. But when you look at the front, you can see it's very, very formal. And as we move on, right next to it, see a different color. This one doesn't recurve at all, see? No recurve, but it doesn't make it any less beautiful. This one recurves back to the stem, but it's sort of spiky. And this is an informal decorative, not quite as formal as the others. That has the unusual name of ACZ. And you may have picked up on the umbrellas. I show dahlias as well as grow them to sell as cut flowers or tubers. So we have shows, and in the shows we want to put our best foot forward and show our best dahlias. And the red and burgundy dahlias tend to fade in the sunlight. Thus, we put the umbrellas over them to keep them from fading, and we get a better dahlia for this show. There's another informal decorative, sort of a pink. This is Elsie Houston. And the giants and large dahlias can be from 8 inches and bigger. And you see they come with some variegation, some two-tone dahlias and lavender dahlias. This is a very small one. It's supposed to be bigger than that, but I've never been able to grow it any bigger than that. And you're coming up on a big flower, as you can see. That's Penn Hill watermelon. Now it's a little past its prime, but you can see That's over 11 inches in diameter and quite beautiful. And when it's prime, it is sort of watermelon-y color. Thus, it got that name. These are all pastel colors, and I like to arrange them so they're complementary to each other color-wise. And we have more lavender. And when you get past this one, you'll be able to see this other big pink, yellow, orange blend. A little better view of it. That's informal decoration, not as neat shaped as the ones you saw prior to this. These are more of the large dahlias and a giant next to it. It's Emery Paul. You can see Emery Paul is even bigger than that other one. That's about 12 inches or more. But we have Spartacus here, the dark burgundy one, and this is called Harvey Coupe. As you can see, Harvey is very variegated and a highly prized dahlia for that reason. But oddly, Harvey Coupe was a sport. In other words, it came from Spartacus, as did Vasiomegas. That lavender one we looked at recurved back. You see, they all recurve back to the stem. And these all originated with Spartacus, the dark burgundy one. So here we have some more giant dahlias. The striking fluorescent one here is called Bella Barmera. And this lavender one is called Penn's Gift. This was originated in 1950 by a gentleman by the name of Stanley Johnson, who was a giant in the dahlia world and in dahlia history. He developed that. He's from Jenkintown, actually, and he developed that Penn's Gift, and it's still growing today. The other pink is Mingus Kaolin. And behind it, if Mimi will pan to her left, you see more giants and larges, and even some lower border dahlias. These were placed just for looks, so it's one of the first things you see when you come to our dahlia garden. And when they're at their peak like this, they're very impressive, if I don't mind saying so myself. You may also notice the reinforcing bars, 1/2 inch by about 6 feet, is an ideal stake for the dahlias. It'll support the plant even in the wind. You get something less than that. Bamboo stakes are fine, but they have to be pretty big because they'll blow over otherwise, and dahlias need support. That is one thing that they almost in common with every grower. They have to support the dahlias in some manner. And once Mimi gets around, you'll see that some of them have like a link stake, almost like a peony ring. And you can see the link stakes on the Kid Climax, another form of supporting dahlias. These are very short, so we don't need a big tall stick to support them. A form of support is a peony ring, a common peony ring, and particularly for the border dahlias, they work just fine. And even for some of the bigger dahlias, actually the water lilies are all supported by a larger peony ring. You're looking at Spartacus. We've mentioned them earlier, and a very striking recurving dark burgundy bloom, large. 6-8 inches is not uncommon. And once again, you can see I need a pretty hefty, even a rebar, I need a pretty hefty stake to support them. This year has been a horrible year for growing dahlias with the heat and the dryness, so they aren't as tall as they normally would be. However, the blooms are of a good quality, and I can't complain about that. Now we're looking at giants and large dahlias again, but these are in the hot colors, whereas we saw some large ones before. They're in pastel colors. These are the oranges, the reds, the yellows, and you'll see some of these are rather spiky. And these are another form of dahlias, semi-cactus. There's a mixture of formal decorative type dahlias as well as the cactus or semi-cactus forms. So we'll just look at them and you'll see all the colors they come in. You might notice this is a different system of supporting the dahlias. It's just simple stakes with concrete wire laid on top of some small bars to support everything. And the dahlias grow up through it. Don't have to tie them up. They just go right through it and they support themselves. Yet another form of supporting dahlias. And these rows that you'll be seeing are very straight and they lend themselves to these rectangular shapes of the wire and the stakes and support the dahlias well. Still in the same giant and large bed of hot colored dahlias. These are semi-cactus form. That is AC Big Johnson. Now, as you get later in the summer, sometimes the flowers get a little smaller. This year, we never really had a really good spring, so I don't know if they ever got big. But this year, they're certainly plentiful, and they're blooming nicely, and they have good forms. These are giant dahlia again called Zorro with Louis Magos in the background. Louis Magos is another sport of Spartacus, only it's a white one. And none of them are particularly mature, so they aren't recurving a lot yet. But the Zorro will get very big, bigger than this, many of them earlier in the season, but we're losing some size now. And that's Zorro. Yeah, the umbrellas don't lend themselves to taking good photographs, but we just got to keep them on there to keep the dahlias nice dark burgundy. These are medium-sized dahlias, so the flower's a little smaller and they won't get any bigger than 6 or 8 inches. And once again, we have a variety of colors. And I found that these particular varieties tend to be a little on the short side, so this setup's a little lower. And you'll see, once again, come in a variety of colors and shapes. And then to your left, we'll show you some others. These have a mixture in here, a lot of mediums, but there are some larges in here as well. Jean, a very, very popular dahlia all around the world these days, particularly in the United States. Everybody wants to grow it, and in fact, the National Capital Dahlia Society's challenge flower is Bloomquist Jean. Everybody grows one of the Bloomquist Jean. They put them in the show, and the winner gets to brag that they're the best dahlia grower in the society. Here are your stages. If you look right here, there's a relatively new bud. And here's as it's growing, and behind it's even a younger bud. And then up here it's developing until you get the final product like that, fully recurved and just beautiful. So here's some more medium sizes and a variety of shapes and colors. While we're down here, Mimi's going to give you a panorama of a special bed of dahlias. They're called ball dahlias. And in a moment, I'll tell you why they're obviously called ball dahlias. And you can see even from this distance, they're very round. and we're going to walk up and take a closer look. I'm going to show you what makes a good ball dahlia. If you look at the back, if you can scoot down there a little, Mimi, and see the back. It curves all the way back to its stem, and it's got a nice round shape like a ball, and that is an ideal form of ball dahlia. And now you'll look at the colors, and you'll see there's blends and oranges and more yellow and bronze and purples and lavenders. Get all the fabulous colors that the ball dahlia comes in. Bicolored ball dahlia, very unusual color for a ball dahlia. It's developed by a gentleman by the name of Ed Kuhn, who named it after himself. And he was a member of the National Capital Dahlia Society, Ed Kuhn. And there's nothing quite like it in the ball dahlia world. More dahlias, obviously, and most of these are small dahlias. That means they're 4 to 6 inches in size. There are some exceptions, we'll get to them in a bit, but most of these are small, and there's a few miniatures. Let me just show you this one real quick as we're walking by. This is called Colorado Classic, and has a very unusual color pattern too. Colorado Classic. But you see, some of them get quite tall, and you can see why we need support. And the flowers in general are other than ones like this, are a little on the short side this year. They usually all would be well through the wire. So still some small dahlias. We have a couple miniatures stuck in here and there. This is a neat little miniature dahlia called razzmatazz, and you can see it's quite vibrant in color. And that's less than 4 inches, but bigger than 2. Bell Red Desire, very unusual shape, and just white with the little tips of purple. And we're coming up on these yellow blooms are Embrace, and those little yellow blended blooms are some of the biggest dahlia winners in the country. This particular variety wins lots and lots of awards. It's a cactus form. As you can see, it's very spiky. And we're going to come up on some miniature ball dahlias, and we'll talk about them in a moment. Okay, we have some more dahlias. These are obviously round, though you might have surmised they're ball dahlias, only these are mini ball dahlias, and these will be less than 4 inches in diameter. And some will even push that a little bit, but for the most part, they're a little smaller than that. And you can see they come just like the others in a variety of sizes, variety of colors, and blends, and solid colors, and oranges and purples, and yellow blends, and pink. And we'll just let Mimi take a walk down there and show you all the vibrant colors that they possess. And these two beds now, they're small and miniatures. They're a combination. There might be a few odds and ends which I plugged in when some died, but more or less they're all smalls and miniatures. The miniatures will be 4 inches to 2 inches. I like this bud to make a better dahlia bloom, a straighter stem, because we don't want just 3 inches of bloom. We want some leaves and the shows and a nice stem. And even when you're cutting them for arrangements, you're better off if you take the 2 little buds off the sides and leave the center, because you'll get a better bloom, better stem. And you'll find if you don't do that, you're cutting those buds off anyway. So why not take them off sooner and make a better dahlia? Okay, this is a small dahlia called Fidalgo Blackie. It's an informal decorative. And the nice thing about these small and miniature dahlias, they're so much more versatile in flower arrangements and cutting bouquets. The big ones so dominate arrangements and bouquets, and sometimes you only need one of the big ones. So if you want to make a nice arrangement with other flowers and greens and what have you, the small miniatures are much more versatile for those purposes than the giants and mediums. AC rosebud, which actually looks like a little rose. So there's a very unusual form, but still small, and because of the various colors in there, you can mix in other varieties of dahlias or flowers which complement those vibrant colors. This bed we call the bicolor bed because it's a mixture of white and colors dahlias. And we have pink and white and yellow and white and burgundy and white and orange and white all in this bed. They are not up to their usual performance at this point because of the summer, and they just aren't doing as well here as they usually do. But you can see they're quite striking, and as we move up the bed, you will see some very unusual formations with some unusual colors. And even on the same plant, the colors will vary with every bloom. The little red and white one is Santa Claus. The pink and white one is Pink Gingham. And this orange and white one is called Summit Festival. It's similar to a la mode. And these larger ones, which are actually medium, are tartans, and you can see how striking they are. You can see them, they're almost dark, and then you have the white, and there's some variation within the same plant and the blooms. That one's a little more white. And over here, we have one of the popular dahlias with flower arrangers and weddings, Labyrinth. And we may be oddly, they're growing to the sun, so you may be able to see them trying to grow through the fence to get to the sun over here. Okay, Mimi, you're now at what I call our south gardens. And in our south gardens, we have a lot of unusual varieties of dahlias and forms of dahlias. And we're going to look at them real quick. And these first ones we're going to look at are open-centered dahlias. Now, the other dahlias we looked at, we want them to be closed so you don't see the center. But on the open-center dahlias, we want to see the centers. This is Mystic Fantasy. This is new for us this year, but you'll notice the dark foliage, and that's very prized in dahlias. And it's got a simple single flower, no fuzziness, whereas ones like this is called a collarette, and so you got a little extra row of petals around the center. Okay, these are some more open-centered dahlias. This is a very prize-winning single dahlia called Ainsley. That's developed by Tim Elkner from the Greater Philadelphia Dahlia Society, named after his daughter. And in front of it is Pooh, a long time. Not a very good one, I might add, but striking orange and yellow. But I wanted to point out right in front is a seed pod, and the open center dahlias produce lots of seed pods. And theoretically, if you dried that and grew some seeds, you'd get a lot of open center dahlias, and they would all be different. But we don't want to allow that because we want the blooms to keep going. So I'm going to cut that seed pod off. And it's going to go in the compost because I want that dahlia to keep producing flowers. And if it produces seeds, it's met its purpose in life. By cutting the seeds off, it keeps producing flowers. It's collarette, Alpen cherub, very nice one. A Papa Gold, open center dahlia. This year I chose to throw some ball dahlias in the background because I don't like spaces, I like plants in them. But we have the open center. This is pipsqueak, another Alpen cherub, another poo. And this is not an open center dahlia, but it's a very beautiful dahlia. Should be over in the bicolor. And it is what, Mimi?
Peaches and cream.
There you go. She gets a,
one of my favorites.
Gets a award. So those are the open center dahlias that I grow. Yeah, you have to stand back because some of these are over 8 feet tall. Next year I'm probably going to cut them back a little more and try and keep them down. But this is a cactus bed, and you can see there's some very frilly called fimbricated cactus, that yellow one way up there, and that red tipped with the yellow, red with the yellow tips, fimbricated. And you have semi-cactus of the white ones, and the cactus of the red ones are Tom's Salk, another old-time dahlia. But you can see there's 4 different forms of cactus dahlia, and there's 3 of them right here. Fimbricated with the split petals, semi-cactus, the white, and this is a cactus. Tom's Salk. This is yet another form of cactus called incurved cactus, and you'll see the petals go towards the center. Either one of those, you can see. That's AC shell there. And this is a cactus, high debut. And another cactus, Clara Houston. These are all giants or larges. And the Windhaven highlight is a medium. That's yellow, obviously. It's only a medium. Citron de Cap, a nice fuzzy yellow cactus. And to the left down here we have Pineland Princess. You can see it's quite striking. Pineland Princess. And a semi-cactus, Parkland Rave. So we have stellar dahlias and anemone dahlias, plus a couple mistakes I see. But nevertheless, this is a stellar dahlia, a big prize winner called Bloomquist Pumpkin, very similar to Bloomquist Jean, and just spectacular the way it curves back on itself. And this one also wins lots of awards. We also have this yellow one right here. That's a yellow stellar. The petals are more pointy if you look at them closely. And they look more like dahlias, whereas some of these other things I'm going to show you don't look the first thing like a dahlia. For instance, these anemone dahlias with the fuzzy little noses are an anemone form of dahlias. That's Bloomquist Lariat, These are more of the stellar. This is Stillwater Becky, and to the right and up is raspberry punch. You notice once again they have the pointy petals, but they can be a blend or a more solid color. As I said, some won't even look like dahlias. We have Elvira, which is a mini dahlia, micro dahlia, but it's also called a peony, a micro peony. Doesn't look like a peony to me, but hey, they gave it a name. That's what it is. This is a micro water lily called a Toile de Wenzel. That's, believe it or not, has won me a lot of awards. But they got to be less than 2 inches or less. And they certainly fill that bill. That is the bloom. This is Mars, another novelty. I guess they call it maybe they call it a single. They keep changing the classification of it, but it's been around a while. Valley porcupine, a very old novelty, one of the first novelty dahlias they developed. And this is Japanese bishop. This is a peony. At least this looks a little more like a peony. It's a peony dahlia, but is blessed with that dark foliage. These are orchid dahlias. They supposedly look like an orchid flower, not to me. Over here there's a couple more, but you can sort of see that one underneath is close. Doesn't look the first thing like a dahlia. Nevertheless, they call it an orchid dahlia. And there's a little other orchid dahlia with a little extra set of petals in there. It's called an orchette. It's like collarette and single. Orchette dahlia. Ginger willows, both bunches. They're just finally starting to close in the center now. All summer they've been open in the center, which you don't want if you're showing. So, Mimi, you don't necessarily need to grow dahlias in just a strict dahlia garden. You can work them into your landscape. Here we have a little courtyard, and we've used border dahlias behind annuals to create a nice effect. We're going to walk over here across the terrace. We're going to look at another use for dahlias, and it's not necessarily in a dahlia garden. And we're coming up, you'll see the reddish coral color dahlias. They are right in front of the evergreen shrubs. And some would say, well, they're too tall, but I like them tall. And when you see them from the front yard, it's nice to see that big splotch of color there. And over behind them are my Mexican sunflowers, Tithonia, the orange flowers. Now you can't see them because they swallowed up. I have border dahlias under them. So next year I'm going to have to separate them better. And we also have some deadheading to do on our Fire Magic dahlias. So dahlias just aren't for a garden. They're for your landscape too.